I'm a lot like an onion, but it's not because I have many layers. It's because as I grow older, my outer layer becomes moldy. And when you explore my insides, it just makes you cry.
Greetings, fellow Earth babies, and welcome to Post-Punk Heartstrings. I am Jimmy James S. Butler, and I've missed you. It's been a long time. Where you been? What's been up? Me? I've been doing the usual moving and shaking, and quite a bit more sitting and conversing with new friends while I drink craft beer. But anyway, this is part 2 of what will be a 3-part series on the music of the band The Choir. In this episode, Jamie Harmon and I will finish up the conversation we started in episode 1. And then I have the privilege of speaking with the drummer and lyricist for the choir, Mr. Stephen James Hindalong. I was so excited to be talking to a member of the choir. I've looked up to each of the members for so many years, and it was both encouraging and enlightening to be able to discuss many aspects of life and music with Steve. So please stick around for that after Jamie and I finish up our discussion. But first, here's one of Jamie's favorite songs by the choir. Remember, it's a good, great world, but it turns around. Never mind the ground.
Wide-eyed wonder girl, staring into the sky and wondering why. It's a good gray world, but it turns around. Never mind the ground. Look up high, stars above. Please don't cry. Father's love, hold on tight to his hand. Dream tonight, understand. Wide-eyed wonder girl, staring into the sky and wondering why. It's a good, great world, but it turns around. Never mind the ground. Look up high, dancing bear. Please don't cry. Daddy's prayer. Hold on tight to my hand. Dream tonight, wonderland. Wide-eyed wonder girl, staring into the sky and wondering why. It's a good, great world, but it turns, you'll see. So hold on tight to me. Staring into the sky and wondering why. It's a good, great world, but it turns around. Never mind the ground. Wide-eyed wonder girl, staring into the sky and wondering why. It's a good, great world, but it turns, you'll see. So hold on tight to me.
That was Wide-Eyed Wonder from the choir's Facebook live stream in 2017. And now here's the wrap-up of Jamie and I's conversation about the music of the choir. You know, I went through all the songs and took notes, and I wasn't sure what I was going to come up with as like what I felt like was the overall theme of the album. I listed a lot of words, so, you know, reflection, searching, digging, God and the Holy Spirit being bigger than and beyond our understanding. But my overarching theme that I felt I was getting from it was the sovereignty of God, or the divine. I wrote the divine is beyond us. You know, we can't see the entire truth in our lives or how everything works, but the divine and the spirit are in control nonetheless, regardless of our understanding of how things work. So there's a sovereignty there, and God's in control, and the Holy Spirit's working, and we're going to have tough times. We're going to have a sad face. Right?
Yeah, sad
That's
face.
where the songs, you know, we're going to struggle with being ruled by what we can perceive with our senses, or what has been proven through scientific reasoning. You know, the song Consider, originally I was going to do this on just that song and talk about it because I love it. I love the style because it's very much like, you know, it just lists off a whole bunch of things, this versus this versus this versus this, laughter versus tears, love versus fears, you know, and all the contradictions and stuff. But, you know, we're going to have all those in life.
Yes.
And we're going to question. If you haven't questioned things, or you haven't really, honestly, if you haven't ever questioned God, not in a negative way, but, you know, in any way, you know, if you haven't questioned God, then there's something wrong, or I feel for you.
Well, yeah, exactly.
If you haven't lived, I don't know.
Yeah, if you haven't had any struggles in life, if you haven't had any doubts or anything, then it seems like you're not really doing anything. If you're not having any problems, then you need to really question what your walk is like. I mean, there's disparity in the Bible, and that's whoa, watch it, what you're saying, you know, in Baptist circles, you better not be saying that. And it's not saying that it's not sovereign. It's saying that God does put two things in the Bible side by side. Are you predestined to salvation? Yeah, there are Bible verses that support that. Is it your choice? Yeah, there's Bible. So those are side by side in the scripture. Do with it what you will. He's God. You don't have to understand him. You know, I mean, that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. And so he'll bring you to things that you can understand at the time, or that he wants you to work through at the time. But if it's not that time, then don't worry about it. You don't have to understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of times being a parent, you know that with 4 kids, being a parent, there are times where you're like, I don't know. And you have to be able to say, I don't know. I don't know the answer to this question, whatever you're asking me about. And it's okay for us to do that with God, to be like, okay, I need to understand this. I need you to explain this. And he's like, no, you don't need to know right now. You know, it's okay. Yeah. You don't need to know. It's not important. And you have to be okay with that. You're not me.
Yeah.
So let it go. Do what I have before you. There is a song on there that I didn't understand when I was in college, To Bid Farewell. It didn't really mean anything to me, but after John died, that now I look back at that and I totally get it. It's like that juxtaposition, like you were saying, it says a sad sigh for the words I never would say if I were to bid farewell today. And then a glad sigh for the promise of a new day if I were to bid farewell. The movie Mask, where the kid about Rocky, it's a true story about the kid with the disfigured face.
Yeah.
And he says, it's the things that he liked, 5 things that I like, ice cream, blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And he says, and the sun shining on my face, and things that I hate. And he goes through the same list and he says, and the sun shining on my face. Yeah. And so, so like those two things together, it's like, that's the whole crux of Christianity for me, that they can be side by side. I can have this sadness and this joy at the same time.
Yeah. And I think for me, it makes God bigger.
Yeah.
You know, it makes God bigger to not understand everything. Because if you have a God that you totally can understand everything, then it's not a very big God. It's not, you know.
Because we are jacked
It's probably
up.
you. It's probably you. Yeah. If you can understand everything, you're probably God.
Yeah.
That was one of the, what was it? One of the quotes that, it was attributed to Bono. I don't know if he made this or probably other people have made many comments that are similar, but I think he said... I think he said that fundamentalist is when man creates God in man's image.
Yeah.
You know, instead of God creating man in his. So, but That's one of the things as I've wrestled with it over the years and stuff, that's sort of dawned on me, is like a God that you don't understand is so much bigger and so much more magnificent than one that you understand. I know it's all about predestination. You don't have any choice, or the other way. It's all choice. There's, it's all free will. And it's like, there's no one on earth that can reconcile those two things.
No.
I seriously believe there's no way.
All the great scholars have tried.
People think they can, and they'll join their camps. but I'll be in the middle. Yeah. I'll be in somewhere in the middle saying, God's really big. And beyond our understanding.
And the great thinkers do that, like C.S. Lewis. I mean, he wrestled with that, and he was like, don't know.
Oh, I love C.S. Lewis. I have some of his books that I haven't pulled out in a long, but I love his writing.
Yes, yeah.
Like,
talk about a poet.
His use of different figurative things to showcase like biblical truths and stuff like that. Just so interesting.
He's a good Anglican too, by the way. So.
Oh, okay. Well, of course, yeah.
Great
that explains
Anglican.
it. Who is
J.I.
that?
Packer.
Who was that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've read Packer.
Oh,
I've
well,
read
that's
a number
great.
of Packer.
Yeah.
It's been years and years, but I've read some. Yeah. I've read them. But,
all good Anglicans. And I think that's why. I know that's why Derek and I were so drawn to Anglicanism. We had never considered it, but I had a student who invited me to church, and we were kind of struggling because not having a church. Derek has always been a pastor, and he's not pastoring right now. And so we were like, where do you go to church? When you used to be a pastor, where do you go? And so she invited us. And so we went, and we just were like, okay, this brings everything together. Finally, this makes sense because it doesn't claim to have the answers, but it has this long history that you can rely on and turn back to and say, and then you have all these great Anglicans of like Packer and Lewis and all these other deep thinkers and writers and poets and artists. And it's like, okay, this brings all my stuff together, much like the music that the choir does. It brings all of my things together and puts them into a package that I can do this. This makes sense to me. And I like that. It's a very freeing, within a structured way. It's very freeing. I don't know how to explain that, but even with all the liturgy, it's much more freeing than my Baptist upbringing was. So
yeah. I think I understand. I do. Yeah, and I'm so happy that you have that. It's good to hear you talk about it, and it's good to see somebody has found the right mix. Yeah. That's uplifting to my heart.
To defend your spirit, I would go to war. I would chase the devil to Jehovah's door.
Set my guitar on fire with a long stem match. Dance while it burns and laugh when it turns to ash. I would torch everything to keep you warm. I would do anything to keep you from harm. I would do anything to cover you, body and soul, girl. I would do everything in the world to cover you, to cover you. Walk down a dark street naked on a winter's night. Run from the law like a Sunday I saw the light. To defend your spirit I would go to war. I would chase the devil to Jehovah's door. I would do anything to cover you, body and soul, girl. I would give everything in the world to cover you. I would do anything to wrap you up tight on a cold night. I would give everything that I have to cover you, to cover you. I would do anything to cover you, body
was to cover you by the choir from their Facebook live stream in 2017. And now, it's time for my conversation with Steve. In this episode, we take a little trip down memory lane. Glad to have you join us.
Steve is here and it's begun. Steve is here and we're having fun. Steve is here and it's begun. Steve is here and we're having fun. Yeah, we're in the sun. We're in the sun. Yeah, we're having fun. We're having fun. Yeah, Steve is here. Yeah, Steve is here. Yeah, Steve is here. Yeah, Steve is here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, buddy. How are you?
Oh man, I was on time. It just took me like 5 minutes to figure out the thing, you know.
I know how it goes. That's why I sat down like 30 minutes ago to like get my camera placed, get my microphone placed. Figure out where I'm at, you know.
Yeah, I took Derry home from the studio. He still can't drive because of his eyes, you know.
Yeah.
But I drove him home, and it's about an hour's drive with the traffic. So I made it home and I ate some tacos really fast and got on. So anyway,
well,
good to see you.
You know what? I really appreciate you doing this so much. You know, I'm going to try not to be a fan geek too much or gush too much, but there's going to probably be some gushing, you know, throughout this thing.
Oh, that's all right.
You'll just have to deal with it. You don't mind.
Yeah.
Nice.
Are you go by Jimmy James, or you go by? I heard you talking to your friend, and you're James, right?
I'm James. I grew up as James. I kind of switched to Jimmy. I go by Jimmy a lot, but I love when people call me Jimmy James. I don't know.
I think it's cool.
I think it's cool.
I'll call you that.
Kind of sets me apart and makes me feel good. So yeah, I appreciate that.
All right.
Yeah.
My middle name is James.
Is it? Okay. Well, yeah. I never knew that.
Stephen James.
Learning new things already. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Again, yeah. Thanks so much. I should say who you are. Like, people who are listening to this don't know, but for anyone who doesn't know, you pound the skins, right? And you're the main word writer, the main lyric guy for the band The Choir.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I don't want to leave Gary out, because I know he's done some, you know, Mercy Lives Here. And, he's done some.
A very small part of The Choir. I'm mostly, you know,
he's small.
It's trying to be funny. No, he wrote the lyrics for the first album that we did, and then I always wanted to be. And we did an EP, and I wrote the lyrics, and then he just kind of like let me do it from then on, you know.
Yeah.
And
you
sometimes
both fell into your roles, kind of what you were talented.
Yeah,
at.
you know, I think sometimes there's some codependency that goes on in a partnership, almost like in a relationship, and I don't know if it's good always, because like he did write that song "Mercy Lives Here," which is one of the best lyrics in our catalog. So I wonder what would have happened if Derry would have kept writing words. He would have grown like we do. In the same way.
True. Yeah.
You know, he might have really, he didn't get the chip, but I wanted to do it, and he was comfortable with me doing it. And by the same token, he was an engineer, very good engineer, had the studio gear. And I never learned how to do any of that stuff, even though I went on producing, and I always have been dependent on people for technical things.
Yeah.
And if he wouldn't have been that way, of course, I would have probably grown in that area. So sometimes, I don't know, it works for us. We've been a good team, but we can't, sometimes depending on each other for things, we don't grow ourselves in the way we maybe could have or should have.
Yeah, that's a really good insight. You know, you've been talking about the challenge of technology for you since as long as I can remember.
Right.
I think you were even talking about it in the early days when interviews and stuff I read, you know, when you guys made the Wide-Eyed Wonder video. I don't know if you talked about it on there, but I know in some of the interviews I read, you talked about, you're like, I can't even work a VCR. I think that was one of the quotes and one of the things.
Well, it's true. Yeah, it's true. I've always, my mind, I don't have an aptitude for those things. Drum machines, if I start reading a manual, I just like, it puts me to sleep. So I've always been, and I've had really good people around me that do all those technical things. But as a producer, I became a record producer and did a lot of records. But I'm the kind of guy that, you know, really relies on my engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good. I mean, you know, like you said, you can become codependent, but also there's talents that people have, and, you know, relying on somebody else for something that they're, extra talented in, lets you hone your talent, right? And put that out there and focus on that more. So
Right.
I could see it both ways,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've got these little notes, and knowing me, I probably won't stick to them, and we'll just like go off the hiking trail. But I have a note that says first things first. So first things first, I want to ask you, do you care if I share what you texted me as far as, regarding memory lane? You don't care about that?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's fine.
So
that's fine. That's fine.
I'd reached out to you to see if you would do this, and I pushed myself way out of my comfort zone to do that. Even knowing what a great guy you are, and all the people in the band are like, I kind of pushed myself out of the comfort zone to do that. You said, I'm gonna quote you in your text. You said, "I don't mind going down memory lane from time to time, but I reside in the here and now." So I've got some thoughts, but tell me, kind of where you're coming from. I don't know if it was in light of the first episode. I don't know if it was, I know you listened to it. But...
Well, yeah, no, that's fine. I enjoyed hearing that, and I think people really their favorite music is it's where that strikes them at the time. A lot of times you're in college, and a lot of us have our favorite stuff tends to be. People always say, "Oh, this is the best album." And we've been making records all along. We have 20 records or something like that. So I don't mind that people talk about 1987 or whatever of Chase Kangaroo or whatever. Some of people at Circle Slide. But we don't listen back. I don't listen back to my old music at all. I mean, only when we go on tour, we're going to we've done some tours where we did an album in its entirety. So I'll listen to it to relearn it. But we're always moving forward. And so I don't mind talking about the past, but I'm kind of like, okay, I didn't know. I mean, if you'd even heard, a lot of people haven't even heard our last several records. And so like, hey, do me the favor of at least hearing, what we just did, because we're proud of it.
Yeah, and you should be. You should be. We'll talk about that album, more. I've got a bunch of notes, and really just, I mean, the more I listened to it, the greater I thought it was, and that's the best kind of album there is, right? The one you listen to and then you listen. Yeah, I kind of like it, and then you listen to it again, I like it, and then pretty soon you're like, I love it, and you're seeing all these new things.
Right.
I think the growers are really, really kind of the best experience for me, in albums. But
right.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, but it was when I was hearing your podcast and I heard those songs that I haven't listened in a long time. I heard Consider and the different ones. That, man, it had a lot of energy.
A lot of energy.
When you're 26, 27, you have a different energy than you do at this point. And I like to think I still got the energy I'd like to beat on the drums, but there's something that you just have that fire, in your 20s that you don't, you just don't feel that. You play what you feel, and you don't quite feel that same. You don't have that same. You don't have as much testosterone, I guess.
I'm there too. I'm 52. I think you guys are roughly 10 years older than me. I'm 52, and
10 years.
Yeah, it just as happens. 10 years. Yeah. So, but I did want to say, like, of course, you said that, and then I'm like, oh shit, I've alienated this guy already.
No, I didn't feel that.
I'm scouring back through in my mind. I didn't go back and listen to it, but I'm scouring back through okay, what did Jamie? I know it because when I was already had known this was going to be a thing, but editing these things is you end up listening to things over and over again, right? And so in that process, so I knew everything that was said without going back, and I was like. And I was like, okay, what is there anything that makes me cringe there? And I think the one that stuck out in my mind that made me cringe was, I think Jamie has clearly not kept up with you guys, and now she'll be back into it because of this whole thing, which is great, and she loves your music, But at one point, I think she said, they have a ton of albums or whatever, and I was like, yeah, but there's kind of a core, few. And that's the statement I made that kind of makes me cringe, especially since I've kept up with you guys this entire time and have listened to everything, have bought a bunch of stuff from your store and different releases and read articles and read reviews and everything. So I think when I said that, I was referring more to that core of time. And the reason I was focused on that was because that was such a transitory time for a handful of people in my circle, raised in the like sort of a really legalistic, fundamental type background. And your music came along and there really wasn't anything else like it in our circles. There are friends were, going, let's go to Whiteheart, let's go to Michael W. Smith or the Imperials or whatever. And it's like, I was so sheltered in the music part that, I heard a lot of secular music that my older brothers and sisters listened to, but it was more, rock, and it wasn't the alt stuff. So I just had a little taste of it. I'd hear Adam Ant on the radio. I'd hear REM on the radio. I missed out on a lot of music that I get to discover now, but it was just mind-blowing to me at the time. And not only was the music mind-blowing, but the message was just counter to everything we were told. You were supposed to pretend and be shallow. And if something was wrong with your life, you must not be reading your Bible enough, or you must not be praying enough, or you've got some secret sin you're harboring or something like that. And so, I'll mention this later, but one of my things that I really don't want to be misunderstood on things. And so I wanted to clear that up. Like, I love your work. I love your solo work is great too. Won't have time to talk about that, I don't think, tonight, but I've kept up on it. I love it. I think the last time I went and saw you guys was when you did the Wide-Eyed Wonder album. I saw you in Aurora.
So we had Robin back.
Yeah, Robin was there. There. I was too shy to come up and say anything, and it was just silly. But that's the last time I made it out. But hopefully soon there'll be another opportunity. But yeah, so I just wanted to, do you have any other comments about the episode? Is there anything that bugged you?
No, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And then I appreciated Jamie's enthusiasm and all. It's all right, because that's where she was. Yeah, I liked it. I liked it was sweet, and it warmed my heart. And I kind of took me back to that time. So no, I enjoyed it very much. And no, it's true that I guess you could call it a core. Those 3 albums, Chase Kangaroo, Wide-Eyed Wonder, Circle Slide, we had done 6 albums in 6 years, and we were just, unknown pretty much, and just played local, and we're trying to make our mark, and so to find our sound and make our mark and be who we wanted to be, find our identity creatively. And that definitely happened with Chase the Kangaroo. There was a lot of push and shove and not a lot of confidence. And we when we got done with that, we knew we had made something special and unique. Had gotten away from some of our influences, I think, or not so transparent. Like I remember, because U2 was such a big influence back then in the early 80s.
Yeah.
So with guitar, Derry was so influenced by the Edge's guitar thing. And I remember the first time he started playing the song Consider, and had that guitar ding, 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 had that delay on it, just like the Edge. And I told Tim, the bass player, Chandler, I says, I'm going to play whatever I think Larry Mullen would not play. And you do not play. Think of what Adam would do, and don't do that. Do the opposite. Because I was kind of mad at Gary a little bit, like not again the Edge.
Like, be it maybe derivative or something. You were
it's derivative. That. So instead of doing like that, or some kind of rolling thing like Larry would do, and of course Adam would just boom, 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 straight down. Tim came up with that boom, 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 awesome. Boom, and I'm on the right side going ding, go back, ding. I'm just going. I'm not going to get on. I'm not going to do the Larry. I'm just doing the opposite of what U2 would do. Right off the bat.
Hey man, you might have saved. You might have. Hey, you definitely. I don't know if I'd say you might have saved the song, but you definitely that transformed it for sure. Because the drums in that song are just unbelievable. Especially there's that little time where it's just the drums, right? In that song. Beat. Yeah, it was a really unique sound. Gene Eugene recorded it from Adam again. Gene Eugene, and he did this thing where he got this crazy idea. There was one of these microphones. I think they call it a PCM, or I forget what it's called, but it was a round and flat metal thing that was like, I don't know what they'd use it for. I think pianos or on the ground. I don't know what it was, but it was a weird microphone. Laid flat?
Yeah, laid flat.
Oh, wow.
And he wrapped the cord around my neck and hung it on my chest. He just thought, he was laughing at, this is a funny idea. and he used it like an overhead, so it picked up, the set just like I was hearing it, like in my ears. But that kind of crazy presence that the drums had on that song was like, it's that microphone, that idea, that crazy idea.
Wow.
It was so experimental back then. Everything we were doing was.
I mean, I guess I didn't really, at the time, of course, I didn't realize, everything. You guys did a lot of stuff that was kind of very creative and kind of revolutionary.
Yeah, we were trying really hard. We were trying really hard. There's a lot of things. I think Derry doing that thing on Clouds, where we had that breakdown for a minute long, and just that it was before they had this genre called ambient music, and it was just that minute of just wash and backwards stuff, and he'd have to turn the tape over and to record backwards. Everything was so much work to create that beautiful minute long thing that sounded like you're walking on into heaven or something. That stuff it just took a lot of energy, and
it took a lot more time and energy than it would today, right? It's like,
there was just a lot of effort that went into, big ideas, trying really hard.
And so, I had a thought. I've lost one thought, but I have another. You mentioned U2, and I was thinking you guys remind me of U2, not in the sound necessarily, but especially early on. One of the things that I was really excited me about U2 or your band or any other band, so they weren't just there playing the stuff. They were like, they considered themselves like artists, like trying to make different sounds and different creative type things, and make a song out of that rather than just play a straight up instrument and stuff like that. I'm probably not being very eloquent about it, but you read back about U2, and I think you guys were like this too, and still really you're still like this, like, trying to find new sounds and new, a new experience for the listener. And I'm always attracted to that kind of music. I like some basic stuff too, but that's really my love, I think, is that creative area, because it presents people more as artists than just straight musicians. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
I mean, U2, they're our age. They're exactly our age. And so they're sort of our peers musically, so, and there was nothing like that at the time. And so it was an exciting time in music, and
very much so. I wanted to spend a little bit back down memory lane, a little bit of time. And it sounds like you're cool with that.
Sure, absolutely. I'm doing it right now.
Absolutely. You're deep in it.
I've gone ahead of you.
You sound like you're enjoying it. So that's good. I pulled out some old stuff I have, a few things. You remember the choir, the tour diary? You remember that? Do you even remember?
Tour diary?
It was like a little newsletter that was called the Choir Tour Diary.
I remember we used to do newsletters. Yeah,
that's what it was, and it says the Choir Tour Diary on it.
That's how we made our money, because we would send out those newsletters, and people would order our T-shirts, and they'd send money. We get the mail would start coming, and then they had checks in there, and there's checks, $10, and we just that's the way. So for us, it was like, wow, look at all this mail, and we're counting the money. We made $300. Wow,
you're like excited about and
we're mailing the T-shirts and all that. And then we liked it. Our guy Mark Circum. Everybody in the band appreciates Mark.
I have his autograph.
Yeah, you do. He married Robin. But he was our road manager guy. He did everything for us. And he wrote those newsletters. He was a journalism major. He was a journalism major. And we thought he was hilarious. We thought they were so funny. We laughed and howled. And Mark,
I think in the one I read, you hit a cow.
Hit a cow.
Remember hitting a cow?
You don't forget a thing like that.
Okay. I was going to say.
You don't forget. I'll tell you what was playing. Is that band Talk Talk.
Oh, really?
We were big fans of Talk Talk. Was playing.
Talk,
it was like, it was around midnight, and we were leaving. I think it was Nebraska, I want to say, but it might have been, I don't know. I can't remember where.
It says in there, but I forgot.
But it was like pretty late after the gig. and we were listening to Talk. That Spirit of Eden album was in the in the van, in the cassette was in there, and it was just really dreamy, spooky album, space album. We were all in the zone, and then all of a sudden, I heard Robin scream, and then bam, we hit that cow, and we stopped, came to a stop, and the music is still playing, it was so weird. Yeah, that cow was laid out across both lanes, too bad, I guess cost the farmer some money, and it smashed our van pretty good.
Yeah, I think there's a photo of it in the newsletter at the front of the van.
Yeah, we had to get a new.
Our van survived, but I think it said Bessie did not, or something like that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But yeah. So I told that I was reading that a little bit, and then I have a old CCM magazine that I have, and you guys are on the cover of it. It's May of 1989, and I wanted to read a quote from that. That quote from you from I forget who interviewed you in that. It was somebody I knew. I forgot who it was, but anyway, it says because this has always stuck with me. Okay, so we're trying to say things that have never been said. We all use the same words, but if you can put together words in a way that nobody else did, that's like a painting. I'm not trying to paint by numbers, and I think Christian music has a lot of times been paint by numbers. There's something exciting about throwing something on the canvas in a different way, and there's something excitingly permanent about making a scratch on the gray matter on people's brains. And when I read that, ironically, your statement about making a scratch on the gray matter of people's brains made a scratch on the gray matter of my brain. And it's resonated with me. And I mention that every once in a while to somebody. Like that's that example. I'm like, that's what I want to do. And is that still, something you're pretty much, that's one of your primary drivers in doing things?
Yeah. Just think about it. The fact that the song Let It Be by the Beatles, Let It Be. Yeah. Everybody alive knows that song. And there's a scratch, when you remember something, there's a permanent mark on your brain, that's made on the minds of everybody that's alive pretty much, and that is pretty, that's one of the great rewards. Even now, our band never had any significant commercial success at all. We never got really big or anything, but we've had longevity, and we could play just about in any city in the country and have a room full of people. And maybe it's a house show, maybe there's 20 or 30 people there, but they're singing sentimental song, they're singing the swirts. And just to think that for decades, people have carried these songs in their hearts and in their minds. That's very gratifying to me. And I've always been kind of propelled by realizing every individual matters, and we're playing for individuals. Nice. We're not playing for arenas. We never did. We got to play some pretty great gigs back in the day, at festivals. But for the most part, our audience has been small. But I feel like we sowed pretty deep. We didn't sow so wide, but we've sown deep, and people have resonated with some of the songs so for their lives, and so that feels great. That's reason enough. That's reason enough to do it and to have done it.
Yeah, you've made a lot of permanent scratches for sure. And I like the way you said that. You've sowed deep. And this kind of leads into the next thing I was going to mention from that time, and probably still, you guys interacted with fans differently than I would say most of the other bands, whether they were Christian or secular or whatever. I remember going to concerts and there'd be an autograph line, and you get up there and they'd sign your autograph, and that pretty much would be it. The concerts that I went to with you guys, like you came out, there was a couple concerts I went to where it was like an hour or two. We just sit there and talk about stuff, what bands we were listening to or the music or things like that. You remember those little 8x11, these were kind of big in that time, the 8x11 photo things of the bands, and you'd sell them and people would autograph them. Do you remember those at all?
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of bands say, I have one of those of the choir. And so I have all of your signatures on it, including Mark Circum. And,
Great.
Robin wrote, "Hi, James, love the Lord." Derry wrote, "Seek truth." Dan wrote, "Howdy to James."
Yeah.
Mark wrote, "James, God bless." And you wrote, "James, render love." Okay. So, And so the message that was different than other experiences, at least for me, even with Christian bands. So, the message of seeking the truth, and extending mercy, I think was present even in your autographs you signed, in the humility, with interacting with the fans. I remember the first time I saw you, it was at Southwest Baptist University. I think it was just you guys. I don't think anybody else was there, any other bands. And we talked for a long time. I talked to the various members of the band. But I think one of the first things I said to both you and Derry, I said, "You guys are my inspiration." And both of you responded in the same way, like almost in unison. You said, "You are our inspiration." And that just blew me away at the time. I was like this late teen, self-conscious, didn't feel like I belonged, where I was, because there were all these straight-laced Christians, and, I was this weird dressing rebel, I guess, if you will, in a certain ways. But you guys sat there and just talked to me and my group of friends like we were just regular people. And,
well, you are. You are.
Well, and we are, people. Right? But you don't. But
yeah.
A lot of the bands maintained a sort of a hefty measure of that unapproachable rock star image, and
right.
It didn't matter whether they're Christian or secular. And
right.
Why do you think you guys? I have ideas, and of course, but why were you guys so approachable and personable from the beginning?
Man, I was working at the time. I always worked construction and different jobs, and I'd be all week long working, shoveling with a pick, just a worker guy, and the boss would be like, "Hey, shithead, move those bricks over there." And I treated me like that. I was a regular. I just because all of a sudden on Friday night, you're standing in a line signing autographs at a show. I know what I did all day and who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
you've got the context.
I was just so thankful. Yeah, and I don't know. Our parents, Derry and I had very similar. We had parents that were really the kind of people that serve other people. His father and my father were really both good examples to us. They were servant type guys, and that kind of instilled. I think we both, Derry and I. His dad passed away a few years ago. My dad's still doing all right.
Good. That's good.
But I think a lot of times when I kind of mess up a lot, I'm ashamed of myself for something I've done or mess I got myself into. I say to myself, "Steve, you're Paul Hindalong's son."
Wow.
And that's something to live up to. So I think both of us owe a lot of our character to the examples that our fathers.
What an awesome legacy
lived.
Yeah. And inspiration for you to leave that legacy, right?
Right.
That's awesome.
Right.
Wow.
But we just had the Holy Season, the Holy Week, it just happened. And my favorite part of that week has always been, our most inspirational part of it is Thursday, Thursday, when Jesus did that crazy thing where it was the day before he died, which was going to be Friday, right? He gets his disciples the last time and he says, "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wash your feet." And he did that. And he wasn't telling them, "Hey, I want you guys to live a life of drudgery." He was showing them, "You want to be happy? I love you guys. Okay, I'm going to leave you. I really love you guys. You're my family. And I'm going to show you how to be happy, how to experience really joy. Serve other people. If you serve other people, that's the way you experience joy."
Wow.
To me. So,
and that's so true.
Yeah.
Right. That's so true. Like you think
it
back
is true
on your life, anybody, and you look at what brought you the most lasting joy,
right,
and satisfaction. It's going to be
think of the most
times,
famous. The most famous, successful people, whether they're successful in business or they're the famous singer in a big famous rock band, do they generally seem like the happiest people? Kind of not, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't be successful and be famous and be happy, but a lot of them are not. Okay, a lot of them are not, and so a lot of people are going, why did that guy kill himself? So we think it's a trick, right? It's a trick. You think, the more I succeed or the higher I climb up the hill, the happier I'll be. But we're fooled by that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a counterintuitive thing, which we'll talk about a little bit more, later. But
counterintuitive, that's the word. It's counterintuitive.
I love counterintuitive things, and because that's what Christianity kind of is for me. True Christianity.
A lot of it is counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Sermon on the Mount, that's what that whole thing was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm surprised that I'm talking about this because I have not. We haven't considered ourselves a Christian band since the 80s.
Yeah, it's what,
and we don't.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. I was telling my girlfriend I'm a little worried because I did not intend. Like I had my conversation with Jamie and I loved it and thought it came out really well. And she's a great conversationalist, right? As are you. Mm-hmm. But I said, I'm worried, this is not a Christian podcast. I did not want it to be like, so, it seemed like I went a little bit further down that road than I wanted to. And I'm not sure the right word. I was going to say chastise. I didn't chastise myself really, but I kind of was like, wait a minute, like, don't even worry about it. Just, it is what it is. It's where it went. But,
and that was your context. You were talking about your context.
Yeah.
And that's where you came from. That's where I came from. I'm in a lot different place right now than I was at the time of those early albums. I don't believe a lot of the same things and so on.
Me too. Me too. And I was like, I just don't want to alienate, right off the bat, alienate a bunch of people,
right.
that I want to be talking to and I want to hear.
Well, just say the F word a few times.
And I will. And I will.
I'll try not to.
I'm always telling everybody, like, that's one of my favorite words. So
me too.
So deal with it. If you're gonna be my friend, that's one of my favorite words.
Me too for sure. But I'll try not to because my parents might watch the podcast. That's the one reason I don't.
Would they? Would your dad? Your dad?
Yeah.
Might. I don't know.
Yeah. No. He in fact will.
He will.
Yeah, he listens. He listens to everything.
So great.
Everything I've ever done. Everything I ever record or produce or anything. My dad listens to.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Yeah. That's
music
great, right?
lover.
That is great, right? Correct. That is great that he listens to everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry, I was kind of making a little joke there, but
I missed it. Every now and then your sound kind of
I'm sorry. I'm kind of moving.
I don't know why. No, you can't do anything about it. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that, but once in a while I miss about 3 or 4 words.
Okay, sorry about that.
I missed your joke. If you told a joke, I missed it.
It was one of my very subtle, veiled jokes, but it wasn't that
might
funny,
not have got
so
it anyway.
Certainly wasn't worth repeating.
Okay, all right.
Listening to great music is always a thrilling experience, and through the remarkable achievements of modern electronic recording, a performance like this may be enjoyed in our homes whenever we please.
Can I get a little laughter from heaven? Roll it.
Hey there, friends. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much for listening. And now, Steve and I wrap up the memory lane portion of our conversation. Here it is.
I am with you, wandering through memory lane, living the years, laughter and tears over again.
So several years ago, I started a blog and I say I started a blog, I want to say I haven't written that much on it, but I've probably written 30 or 40 entries in that amount of time, which isn't very many for 8 years. But anyway, I started a blog that I called Digging Deeper because I had, realized through a number of circumstances and deep discussions with different people, I'd seen the value there is in opening up and being transparent for me and for other people, and the great community that comes from transparency. At the same time, there's a risk there. I feel like, you're a pretty transparent person in your lyrics, the different subject matter and things like that. I know from experience from writing, that it's really good, but you can also have what I would call it a vulnerability hangover,
Right.
after you put it out there. So I wondered, have you ever experienced that? And the follow-up would be, does the reward of being transparent about things outweigh the risk of
Right.
that hangover,
Yeah, I want to
oh my
answer
God,
that.
what did I say?
I am dangerously transparent. Dangerously. I'll tell
me too.
anybody anything, and which is great for one-on-one conversations with friends, because people will tell me, and I love it because
it opens
people
up, right?
I don't know how many people have come out gay to me and all kinds of things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I love, or if they've had an extramarital affair, something, they'll tell me, because I'm so broken. I've done the things I've done, and I will tell people, and then it sets them free to like, hey, you can be yourself, you don't have to prove anything to me, and I'm that way. But sometimes, like, Gary is not that way. He's real private. He's like, why did you tell that? Why did you say that in an interview? And you're like,
funny. Yeah.
Like one thing I did years ago is I got into 12-step program for a while. I went to AA and stuff, and well, they call it that because it's supposed to be anonymous. You're not supposed to talk about it. And somebody found out about that, and I think it was, I don't know if it was CCM magazine or somebody. I agreed to do an interview about it. And I talked about all that, and it was way too soon for me to talk about that. And then I don't know, I'll come across people that have read that article and want to talk to me about it after, years and years. I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about it. That's personal. I shouldn't have talked about it. I shouldn't have. No, don't ask me how many years I've been sober and like that, because it didn't stick.
Yeah, right.
I
was going to say, you mentioned some wine in one of your lyrics in the new on the new album.
Well, yeah, it's but here I am. I don't want, so sometimes I have said too much, and I've regretted it, because I don't need to be accountable to everybody. I'll talk. I have some really close friends for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting you said all that. We're very much alike in that way. I'm overly transparent, and sometimes I find myself thinking that other people are okay with that for themselves too,
right?
When they are not. Just like Derry would not be okay with that level of. It's like I have to remind myself, wait a second, like I'm like a little bit over the top sharing,
right?
And I don't know if that's because I don't know what that is. I guess maybe that's just sometimes wired into people, and
I think so.
Sometimes it's you've also experienced what it brings. That But sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, it helps you. I mean, if you want to be a lyricist, it's a good trait, because it's a place you hide your secrets. Oddly enough, because you could. Yeah. But the songwriters that I grew up in the 70s, and so that the artists were Joni Mitchell and James Taylor, and they just laid it out there. James Taylor's like, the junkie's sick, the monkey's strong, that's what's wrong. He's talking about his heroin addiction, right there. Right. right there. And
Yeah.
Joni would just do it. They would, with the album Blue, she's, talking about her breakup with Graham Nash, and all these artists back then in the 70s were just laying it bare, man. And I just loved that. It moved me. And so I've always kind of followed that thing. I'm just going to lay it out there. I'm going to put it in my songs. And I'll tell you one thing. I've been divorced for 5 years, but my wife, Nancy, we had so many love songs, and they were all usually kind of twisted. They were not the sweetest of love songs. There was a lot of tension in there because that's the reality of relationships. But she hated it. Nancy hated it. She was so overexposed. She's a private person. She felt so overexposed, and that was one thing that, even to the end, especially toward the end, she was like, you cannot write any more songs about me, And after in the album Bloodshot, which was 3 albums ago, was right after we were the divorce, and I put a couple of those things in there. Birds Bewildered, and
that's a great.
There's a couple others that really talked about my divorce, and once again, she was really mad. She's like, "You don't ever do that again," So I don't anymore. I don't anymore. I just like that's done. And now I have a relationship with a girl I've had for a few years now, and so I'm putting those songs.
You're putting those songs.
She doesn't like. Yeah, it's a nice warm love songs. In our last album, if you listen to the last album, there's some deep cuts. It's got some, different kind of thing. But people are different about that. Some people are open and some people aren't. And I don't know. I think you're right. I think we're wired that way, or not.
Well, you need both kinds of people, but you absolutely need the people that put it out there, because there's so many people that are like, I'm the only one. Like I'm so alone. Nobody else has made these mistakes. Nobody else has these issues. And so putting stuff like that out there, whether it's me writing on my blog or you putting it in a song, is like, wait a second, I'm not as fucked up as I thought I was. There's other people that, wait a second, that person has the same or similar issue. Like, okay. And I think for me, that's the worst thing, is thinking I'm the only one. And it doesn't make any sense, but we still think it sometimes, Right. So I think it's really important, but yeah, both kinds of people are important too. So, yeah. So
it certainly doesn't help anybody else. I mean, if you have it all together, especially in that field of Christian music or whatever, it certainly doesn't do anybody any good if the person up front is got it all together and acting like they are not broken like you are. It's just dishonest, for one thing.
Sure.
And there's no power in that, I don't feel. It's like, I think there's more power in vulnerability and risking being human.
Absolutely.
And it's certainly more relatable,
Yeah, absolutely. I have another quote, and this has to do with paradoxes. I think a lot of the choir's music and a lot of your writing has to do with paradoxes of life. So this was from that same article. You said, I try to contradict myself. I hope it's obvious. I think we're all paradoxes, and I am in particular. So I try to show that from song to song. Mm-hmm. I think you guys have always been about reflecting on the paradoxes of life and human understanding. And when I'm talking to people, as I've changed beliefs and they've kind of evolved, and I'll often say, the paradoxes in life and the inability to reconcile, certain things with human understanding, those are the things that for me make, God, or I like to say the divine, bigger than me, outside of me. If I can't understand it, and I see all these things that don't make sense, like that means that there's an understanding that's higher than mine. And I think that for me, that makes more of a place for God or a divine being. But what drives you, or has driven you to write so much about paradoxes of human experience, or, the contradictions that we are?
Just self-reflection. I think I really appreciated when you were talking to Jamie in that first podcast, and you were talking about the song Rifleman came up.
Oh, yeah.
And you totally got it. And you were telling her about that how, I pray for peace and I revel in war, how we talk about peace. And, at that time I was considered myself a pacifist,
Mhm.
Politically and all that. I was
Right.
kind of really influenced by Bruce Cockburn at the time,
Mhm.
and some of the stuff and I would argue for those kind of things. But I realized that I like revenge just as much. My favorite show on TV was The Rifleman, because that's what happens in the last 5 minutes of the show. The bad guy gets riddled full of bullets. It's only a half an hour show, but you have all that satisfaction of the bad guy getting killed at the end of the show, and that just is so obvious to me, playing that in myself. I could argue philosophically whatever I want, but I enjoy vengeance. I have that in me too. I have that.
There's that
in
little
me
thing
too.
part of you. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but I guess I always saw that, especially coming from the context that we were because we were signed way back then, came out of the Christian culture. We were on a label that was that, and the whole thing seemed so hypocritical to me. The whole premise. And I couldn't stand it. And we moved away from it fairly quickly. We weren't going to write those. I just was going to start talking about how I really felt. Well, I was going to, as I called it, I'm just going to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And when telling the truth, you look at your own self. And the first thing is like to realize who I am and go, oh man, I'm going to try to be honest. Try to see myself honestly and share that. So I don't know. That's just.
And I think probably because you guys moved away from that. That's probably why I liked you, because I don't know what it says exactly, but I would always get excited when I would, bands would do albums that were like clearly a move away from like, traditional Christianity.
Right.
You remember? Oh, what was I think it was The Violet Burning. The Violet Burning, right?
Yeah, I produced one of their albums.
Yeah. And the one, I think it was called The Violet Burning. Maybe it was after.
The self-titled was the one that I produced, but I don't know if did they do one?
That might be it. It was definitely a departure. I don't remember if it was after Strength or.
The one I did had Crush Me, Silver, Gold Mine.
That's the one.
Arabic
that's the one.
Radio.
And for me, I think there were people, like, I remember talking to people that, I wonder if they're even Christians anymore, or whatever, like putting that.
Well, they were definitely moving away. They were definitely.
I was like, this is awesome. This is awesome. Like, I love that album still. Yeah. I didn't even remember, and I should, and I apologize, because those were the days where I would read all the liner notes, because there were liner notes to read.
Right.
There were physical CDs in my hand.
It was 95. It was 95. I had done, I think, the Prayer Chain, before them, and they were friends.
The Mercury.
Yeah, Mercury and Shawl. I
love that. Oh, and
I produced those records.
Yeah.
And then that was like probably 93-ish, 94. I don't know. And
it was in there. Yeah.
The Violet Burning was 95. I had moved to Nashville, but went back to Southern California to do that album with those guys.
Yeah.
But that was a departure. They were getting away from. They were pretty mad. Mike Pritchett was really mad at the Vineyard Church that he'd come out of at the time. Yeah. It was part of his journey.
Yeah. And so whenever albums like that would come out, I'd be excited. Like, okay, awesome. They're moving away from that crap. and part of a little bitty piece of me feels bad saying that, but it's not very big. So for the people who loved the other stuff, and I think I've heard you mention, like, I didn't realize how strongly you and maybe the rest of the band too felt about like being stuck in that Christian category.
No, we hated it.
But I just didn't realize it was quite that strong till I'd listened to some of these other interviews and podcasts you're on, and it made sense to me. But I guess I didn't realize it till I'd heard some of these things. I didn't realize how strongly you guys felt about it at the time. But I guess you guys just kind of, those were the connections. Is that fair to say?
That's where we came.
I know Derry knew somebody in DA or was a roadie for them or something like that, right? Or
Right. Yeah. We came out of that world, and that's where so we got our record deal. We're excited to have it, and we were playing with all these bands that were doing that. They're all giving altar calls, and their music was just straight up ministry.
Yeah,
and we
ministry.
didn't fit.
You talked about you either had to be, what'd you say, edification or
either evangelism
worship,
or edification
or evangelism. Yeah.
One of the two. What are you doing? And music is a tool. It's just to and we didn't want to do that. Pretty quickly we're like, no. And Derry wasn't really much of a talker from stage. He didn't want to. Sometimes they'd say, you have to give an altar call, and we couldn't do it. We didn't want to do that, and we just didn't fit. And
so were you guys then playing clubs and stuff too?
Yeah. Right from the start. Right from the start. So we've always played both. Wherever we could play, we played.
Yeah, wherever.
But we definitely weren't doing what churches hired us. We weren't going to do what they wanted us to do.
Was there? I don't have this is in my notes, so this is just kind of where this is going. But was there pressure on any albums? Like, was there? Oh,
there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
From the record label, to get radio.
Right.
And it's like, can you imagine trying to succeed in a genre like of radio that you yourself would not listen to?
No.
I mean, I couldn't listen. I wouldn't listen to a Christian radio station for 5 minutes. Couldn't stand it. Never did.
Yeah.
But yet, can you imagine your success being based on how getting success on a genre that you yourself wouldn't listen to? So it was an impossible thing.
And I think did I read right that Clouds was the first single that they tried to put out for Chase the Kangaroo?
Yeah, we had this,
which is wonderful, but even that, I don't think it's just not going to make it there.
We had this radio guy, Chris Hauser at Word, and now he's like one of the biggest radio guys in the industry. But he was so, dare I say, naive and good-hearted, and he loved us so much.
He loved it.
He got it. He got in his head. He was going to get that song. It's a 6-minute song, and he had us edit it. And I remember I was all, "You can't edit it," but he edited it, and it was his vision. He could get that, and he couldn't get that played on the radio. That was hilarious.
When I was thinking back, when I was listening back to that album, there were a lot of long songs on that album.
Yeah,
quite a few, which was different, a little bit different too, right? I mean, than the rest of the stuff. The rest of the stuff, at least on the Christian labels.
Yeah, I guess so. I like to have different lengths. I like really short songs, and really long ones, like variety.
Yeah.
But I remember, when we opened our album with Circle Slide, that album, the label's like, no, you're not going to start the album with a 6-minute slow drone song, Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah, we are.
I loved it. I think I mentioned in the first episode, at the time when White Eyed Wonder came out, I was like, yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I like but I think it was reflective of kind of where you're at, and it was something different, musically.
Not my favorite album at the time. I just become a new parent. And that turns any guy soft. That'll turn any man into a real soft, sentimental guy. For a little window of time there.
For sure. But there's some awesome songs. I mean, one of the songs on there that at the time I was like, I wasn't that into, but like not long after and since then has been one of my favorites, is Spin You Round. I love that song.
Oh yeah, with Gene and
Gene's on. Yeah, that's an awesome song. But yeah, it was different. And then Circle Slide, that first the title track on that one kind of back into that, like you said, that slow droning, plodding song. But yeah, I didn't realize that was, because that was really, isn't that like one where you won some Dove Awards or whatever for, or am I wrong? I just remember people talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
In Christian
circles. You're talking about what? You're talking about White Eyed Wonder?
I'm talking about Circle Slide now.
Oh, Circle Slide. Oh, so I got lost there for the
Sorry, I jumped over to it. But
no, I mean we didn't get any Dove Awards or anything until oddly enough, Free Flying Soul won a Dove Award in like later, but no, we didn't. But it got some good hype. Circle Slide got some good, it was sort of our peak. It sold the most, and It did pretty good. The funny thing is that we knew that it was our last record on the label, and that we were definitely done with, we had gone out and opened for Russ Taff on a tour.
Yeah, I went to one of those shows.
About 50 cities, and now they hated us. The audience hated us everywhere we went. We didn't belong. It was a terrible time for us. And that was it. We got back from that and we're like, you know what? We're done with this.
Yeah.
We're not doing any more Christian venue gigs we're just done. We're going to do something else. But we did Circle Slide. Let's make a record that we want to hear. And the record label didn't come down. Nobody was involved. Let's make the music we want to hear for ourselves. And then we'll be done. And that's what Circle Slide was. We just, and yeah.
Yeah.
That was it.
Go ahead.
And we never went back. And then we moved to Nashville, and we never dreamed or tried to succeed in that market ever again. We just
and the rest is
did
history.
What we wanted to do. Yeah,
beautiful creative history.
Just kept playing, just kept making records, kept playing, kept working, kept doing it. We never did, like I said, have any significant commercial success, but we get to do it, and we got to do it. We just keep doing it.
You mentioned, Mercury, and you were part of that.
Mercury?
Yeah. And
I was.
And I know that that wasn't exactly the album that they wanted to make, right? There was another, unless I have my stuff wrong, there was another version of that album that they had to change some things. Is that not correct?
Yeah, they had to add a couple of songs. I'm not sure. Yeah, we did the whole thing, and then the record label wanted them to add a couple more songs. I don't know what difference it made. I think they did Sky High and Antarctica, or so. I don't know. I don't remember.
I forget what they put the other version out on their Bandcamp, I think, and I can't remember what it was called even.
The original version was the one I had done with them, and then they had to make some changes, and they went back to LA because they came to. I was in Nashville, and they came out to Nashville to do it with me, and then they went back to LA, and then the label made them do some things different that I wasn't a part of.
The original version's the one they wanted to go with. Okay,
right,
and that was the one you were involved with. Okay, yeah,
I did, yeah.
Wow.
So, but yeah, we did that together. Wayne and I were playing all that percussion together, and they went into this strange zone music, made a very creative record.
Yeah.
And they certainly didn't want to be writing. Well, Eric was writing the lyrics at that point, and they were like, I didn't even know what the heck he was talking about, but it was great. It was cool. It was innovative.
Yeah, I think the first thing I got from them, maybe you could talk about the beginning a little bit, because I think the first thing that I got from them, I think I sent off to True Tunes, or remember when they were kind of big on the alternative mail order of cassettes and things. It was cassettes then. And I got, because the Prayer Chain, I think it was the Neverland sessions. And
that was the first thing they did. The first thing I did that with them. I did all that with them.
Yeah, and you would have, that was your Neverland was you guys, right?
It was Derry's studio. Yeah, it was Derry's place, our place.
I thought. So how did you connect with them and do that? Like, how did that come about?
Dan Michaels
referred. Or?
Dan Michaels was a friend of Andy Prickett's, and somehow, and he kind of connected me to them. I went to one of the rehearsals, and I liked him. So
that was a great release too. I love that.
Yeah,
awesome. I get a little bit more about Chase the Kangaroo.
Okay, sure.
And we'll see where that goes. And then we'll move on to Deep Cuts. So, as you listened to the first episode, Jamie and I talked a lot about that one. And she felt like the theme of that album, because I was like, what do you think the theme of this is? And she felt like it was, searching and digging beneath the surface, like an overall theme. And I kind of felt like it had a lot to do with the sovereignty of the divine in light of circumstances and concepts that are beyond our human understanding, things we can't reconcile. And then after she and I talked, I kind of reflected on it quite a bit more. And I was like, well, I kind of feel like both of those themes coexist on that album together. It's about digging, not being shallow, looking beneath the surface. And it's also about, there's something beyond us that's, beyond our understanding. And it's kind of like that's sort of an ever-present theme in all of the Choir albums. Is that fair to say?
I'd say so. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't say it any better than you just did, honestly. They're 10 different songs, and so, they're all different, but those themes you said are certainly the overarching, and the song Chase the Kangaroo is definitely about that. I mean, it was really literal because I was, like I said, I was working construction all the time. So I was literally, when you work construction and you're just a laborer, all you're doing is dig. You're a grunt. Most of the time you're swinging a pick and a shovel, picking and shovel, because there's a lot of trenches required in concrete. I was working for concrete work. So all these trenches. So that's what I was doing. Picking, shoveling, me and another guy. Yeah. Me and usually one of the Mexican guys, just pick and shovel all day long. Blisters, sore back,
Yeah, I was gonna say blisters.
If you tell, it was hard work. You just think, oh my God. And so that's what I was like, the futility of that. The futility. Monday, I'll be in a ditch working for the builder guy. The name of our boss's name was Bill Guy. He was the boss. Bill Guy was his name.
So Guy was nice.
Yeah, so no one knows that, but it's like the builder. That was his nickname, the builder guy. Yeah, working for the builder guy. So that was literal. Like,
wow.
Fear the ghost, forgive the crowd. It's like, that's what I was telling you. It's like, okay, you may see we're playing a gig and people are cheering and signing autographs, but Monday, I'm just like, hey, move those bricks, shithead.
Yeah. So if the night's uninspired, forgive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgive the crowd. Yeah. Like, but it was like, I'd seen that Bugs Bunny a cartoon where Bugs Bunny digs all the way through. He's trying to get away from Elmer Fudd, and he digs through the earth, and then he goes in, and then there's a Chinese guy with a gun, to shoot him at the other end, like the Chinese Elmer Fudd or something.
Right.
And I thought, and I literally looked at the globe, and I thought, well, if you dug straight through, you'd probably end up in Australia as likely as you would China. So like this stupid, it's a really stupid thing. I thought at the time, this is so dumb. But I couldn't help it. I wrote that, Bugs Bunny went to China. I think I'll go down under. Going all the way through. Sydney is my destiny. I was just playing around. But yeah, it's just about endless perseverance and futility and trying to find something valuable. Jesus buried diamonds in a world where love is rare to find. But it's not like you can't find love, even though the world is cruel and there's a lot of meanness. It doesn't mean there's not a lot of goodness and there's not love. And it's about hope and perseverance. But I was so regretful that I named that album, that we named it Chase the Kangaroo, because I had to explain that.
You had to explain it over and over
constantly,
again.
So many, and here I am doing it again.
Well, that's sad though, Steve, because I got it. If you listen to the album, you got it.
Right.
No?
It's there.
No?
Yeah, it's there.
People didn't?
But I had.
Or is it just people who weren't, were getting there,
I don't know, but I explained it so many times. And I'm just like, why did I do that? It's a stupid title. Oh my God.
Anyway. Do you remember who yells at the end of that? Kind of yells?
Yeah, it's Mark Hurd. That's Mark Hurd.
That's Mark Hurd? For real? Oh,
yes.
Wow, okay.
That is Mark Hurd singing all the harmony at the end of that song. He screams, Mark.
He screams. That's a great part of that song.
He's, ow!
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. He just went out. We didn't know. We were like, hey, Mark, would you sing harmony? He was like engineering. He did some engineering on that album. And he came down. Yeah. He was a friend. We were real intimidated by him. He was 10 years older than us. And
he'd had a number of things out already.
Yeah. He was like kind of a hero of ours. And we're like, hey, would you sing harmony? And he went out there and just one pass, and he's screaming and yelling and all that. Yeah. It's a great moment.
That's awesome. I bought a release by him the other day. Do you remember Ideola?
Oh yeah. I start that album too. I scream on there. Okay. If you put in Ideola, you hear a scream and a slam.
I just brought the vinyl for it. Huh.
Listen to the start of the album. It's a scream and a slam.
That
was me?
Yes. I know what you're talking about. I remember it well. I haven't listened to it in years, but I remember it. Yeah.
No, Mark had me. He got a sampler when samplers were like the newest thing. And he wanted to sample and get all these sounds. for the sampler that he had. And so he had a mobile truck in his driveway, and he had me come over, and he had headphones with like 100-foot cord and a microphone with like 100-foot cord all strung out. And he said, okay, so he could talk to me. And he's saying, okay, go into the house. I'm going, okay, go into the closet and get these rubber shoes, whack them together, whack, whack. Okay, good. He says, go out. I'm doing all these things. And at one point he goes, go out into the driveway and open up the hood of the Oldsmobile. It's a big old brown Oldsmobile. And he says, open the hood. I go, okay. He goes, now take a drumstick and tap the radiator blades. Ding, ding, I'm tapping it, clank,
So awesome.
clank. And then he goes, okay. And then just because I felt like it, I slammed the hood and screamed because I thought it was funny. You know, I think I probably set the microphone down on the driveway, slammed it and screamed. Well, he opened his album with that.
That's awesome.
I'm pretty proud of it.
That's great.
But I'm not-
I
I'm
can't
not
wait to listen to
credited.
it now.
I'm not
As soon as we get
credited
done, I'm
for
gonna
it.
put it on.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I'm like, man, I should. That's the one credit I wanted. But you know, I didn't play on the record. That's all I did.
It was definitely a different departure, I think, for him, right? But
He was trying to reinvent. Yeah, he was.
I
all
think it was under. I
frustrated.
think it was. I don't even think his name's. I mean, it's under Ideola.
No,
as the
yeah,
artist,
it's
I
under
think.
Ideola.
Yeah.
He was like feeling like he had no success, and the only way to succeed was to, you know,
Well, I think
hide
it's
his
great.
identity.
Is it an album you like? Or
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think it's
I
a
like
really
that song.
creative.
Go Ask the Dead Man. Go
Oh,
Ask
yeah.
the Dead Man.
Yeah.
Wow. You know. Yeah, I
He
like.
has a
I like it.
I believe I should remember this. I should know this before I say this. I believe there's a version of "Grew Up Big and Strong" on it, too.
Yeah.
Which is a song I love as well. But
The one
I
that
think
Olivia Newton-John covered that. You know. Olivia
I
Newton-John
I did
covered
not
that
know
song.
that. I did not know
Yeah.
that. Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great
Anyway.
album.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to say about Chase the Kangaroo, and you may or may not agree with this, but this is kind of one of my takes. After I thought about it a lot, I was like, Chase the Kangaroo is kind of a subtle rebel album. And I say that maybe rebel's not the right word, but it kind of is because I'm talking about the culture that it was surrounded by, that it was released in, because you're like, you don't have to smile,
All right. Mhm.
you don't have to understand everything. That's a message throughout the album. We should abandon shallow thinking, and consider our hearts and go higher and deeper, which higher and deeper's, echoed in one of your other songs, Laughter of Heaven.
Right. Uh-huh.
But I think it was a little bit of a rebel album, subtly against like the shallow, hypocritical, culture.
Yeah, I'd say so. I appreciate you listening so closely and really getting it. Yeah, it's definitely you definitely get it.
All right. So are you done with Memory Lane? Would you like to jump
Sure.
into the here and now?
Sure. Obviously, I don't mind it here. I'm telling my
Yeah,
marker.
no, you don't mind it at all. I mean, I just didn't know if you had anything else. I mean,
No.
I'm really excited because I got little bits of information that I didn't have, and some of them I'm not sure anybody here you talked about them before.
No, I know. Let's see.
So-
So, okay, spin you around. I was driving to the studio, and I heard that song by Fleetwood Mac called "Hypnotized." Seems like
Yeah.
a dream. You got me hypnotized. I heard that song. And I liked it. It's just, the drum beat was boom, 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 like that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and I walked into the studio, and I started playing that beat. Boom, boom, and the guys started playing along. They started playing along, and then that's where that song came from. And then I started singing from a lot of times I would sing from the drum set, just sing to myself, working it out. But I remember spin you around and around and around. It was just like that. But if you heard Hypnotized, you'd go, oh, that's what that is.
Oh, I'll have to listen to them back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when that
Anyway.
album came out, like one of my favorites was sorry, I'm going blank. But I could sing it. Come Blow Away with Me. Happy Fool.
Oh, Happy Fool. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I just think it's just kind of slow, and it's got that really interesting rhythm.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's a different kind of
and then
groove,
it kind of
very
jumps
different.
into a faster pace, right?
Right.
Throughout
Yeah.
it. But I thought that was really interesting
Yeah.
and creative at the time. I think that's probably why it was one of my favorites at the time. But
Thanks.
yeah. But,
Wait a
okay.
minute. Was that on? That was on. Oh, wait a minute. Was that on Chase Kangaroo, or was that on What I'd Wonder?
It was on White I'd Wonder. Did I?
Yeah, because Robin. I was
didn't-
thinking because I can really hear Robin on it. Robin
It was on the second side of the cassette.
Right.
It
right.
opened,
Yeah, that was
opened with that
because
one.
I know Robin was
I'd
her bass playing and her vocal was a part of the thing. She was contributed to that creatively. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that was the first album she was on. Right? Was White I'd Wonder.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. I remember meeting her at the concert, and she just talked up a storm, and I owe to her a lot because I was just so naive and wanting to find new bands and this and that, but I was just so sheltered in the culture I was in. I was in the Midwest and Kansas City, and there just wasn't probably it was around the a lot wider music horizons. But I think my shyness and the world I lived in kept me from that. But she was like, "Oh, you should listen to Concrete Blonde. You should check out the Smithereens. you should listen to the Indigo Girls." So I left I left that concert with like a list of like 8 or 9 bands to go buy and listen to, and they were all solid. So but
that's good.
Yeah, it was good. And I think at the time, my friends and I were kind of playing around with making music. We weren't musicians, but I think we got on our hands on a 4-track, and so we were kind of, I would say, creating songs with different sounds. And I mean, we had a guitar and we had a keyboard and stuff like that, but we would try to find different sounds, kind of like what you're talking about with slamming what Mark Hurd was having you do, stuff like that, and kind of putting them together. So we were talking to you guys all about that, and you guys were like, "Oh yeah, keep doing it." Like it's, you guys were so excited. I think Derry in particular was excited when we were like, "Yeah, we kind of have a little band thing going." And he was like giving us as much encouragement as he could,
That's cool.
But that was pretty awesome. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. All right, you're ready. It's here and now, Steve. We're in the here and now, buddy.
Move into the present. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The only other thing I wanted to say about that. See, I keep jumping around, but
that's all right.
It sounds like, and I don't know if you're like this in general, but I am very much a here and now in the moment person, and maybe I've become more like that through the years as I've gotten older. But so usually when I'm looking back at stuff, it's in light of how did that make me who I am today? Does that make sense? So I've never been like really like, oh, remember that? I wish I missed that so much. I wish the glory days I was back there. I've never felt that way, but I look back on the things that affected me and how they made me who I am today. I wanted to mention that earlier, and that's what kind of escaped my mind. But so that's my last word on memory lane.
All right.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode, fellow Earth babies. Thank you so much for tuning in. In the next episode, Steve and I will be discussing the choir's new album, Deep Cuts. I hope you'll be joining us. Remember, you can follow and support the choir. You can find them at their website at thechoir.net. You can find them on Facebook at The Choir Club, and you can support them on their Patreon page. You can find all of the information and links in the show notes. You can also find a list of the attributions for the music and the sounds in this episode. Until next time, peace, love, and mercy to you all. Take care.